a young perspective on hot-button issues around the world. This is The Hub.
The Strait of Hormuz is no longer just a global energy lifeline. It is fast becoming the center of a high-stakes geopolitical confrontation. President Donald Trump's 48-hour ultimatum for Iran to reopen the waterway has expired. Trump said the U.S. and Iran has had very good and productive talks over the past 2 days and that the United States would delay by 5 days any strikes on Iran's power plants. Iran, however, denies having talks with the United States caused them meaningless in current conditions. Washington's signals remain deeply contradictory. Talk of winding down the war even as military deployments expand and threats intensify. So, is Washington genuinely pursuing diplomacy or simply using the language of talks to justify pressure and delay? And when ultimatums are issued and then quietly walked back, what does that say about U.S. credibility and the risks of further escalation? Now, joining us for today's discussion is Ben Norton, Editor-in-Chief of Geopolitical Economy Report, and in Beijing studio, Einar Tangen, Senior Fellow at the Center of International Governance Innovation and Chairman of Asia Narrative Substacks. Welcome, gentlemen. Now, we have a very interesting situation. Let me go to you first, Einar. Let's look at this ultimatum, 48-hour ultimatum that has expired for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, something Iran is reluctant to doing, with no clear compliance and no immediate follow-throughs by Trump. Trump says the U.S. and Iran had good, productive talks. Iran denied that. Some Israeli officials said the U.S. and the Iranian side have in fact met in the country of Pakistan. But Iran calls that claim a fabrication and says that Trump retreated from his deadline out of fear of Iran's response. So what should we believe here? Is diplomacy actually underway, or is this a shifting narrative aimed at buying more time for whatever is to follow?
The second part, this seems to be another instance of taco with a twist. Trump always chickens out. But he has a reason to do this. If you start looking at the military on the ground, he has a marine force totaling about 8,000 moving in from the east, from California, and from approaching right now. It'll take somewhere between 2 and 3 weeks from now before it's fully arrived. What he does not want is the markets going crazy while he's throwing around more threats. I think he's trying to do exactly what he's done in the past, talk about peace while preparing to attack.
I mean, apparently he has read The Art of War by Sun Tzu.
No, I don't think...
A good student of that.
Well, it's pretty clear from interviews he hasn't read the Constitution or the Bible either.
Wow. You know, when he put his hands on the Bible, sworn in as a president in 2016. I was there, 2017 rather, January, I was there on Capitol Hill. I couldn't believe what he said. Words don't match his actions. Now, Ben, let me turn to you. Do you think all that Trump has proclaimed is just a thinly veiled disguise for potential U.S. military attacks on, for example, Karg Island, that is the hub of Iranian oil?
Yeah, I think that's one of a potential possibility, one possibility of many potential possibilities. What we've seen throughout this war is that Trump will say something, and then not just a few days later, rather a few hours later, he'll directly contradict that. He says we're going to wrap up the war, and then he says we're going to escalate the war. It's part of this Mad Men strategy where he wants Iran to never know what the U.S. is going to do next. But if you listen to the statements of Iranian officials, they say that the U.S. has proposed talks, but they're not interested in talks because what Tehran wants at this moment is to establish deterrence. Why is that? It's not because Iran is opposed to negotiations. It's because 2 times now, Iran participated in negotiations with the U.S., and then the U.S. used those talks as an illusion, as cover, in order to launch surprise attacks on Iran. Let's not forget that last year, in June 2025, Iran was participating in what it thought were peace talks with the Trump administration, and then they launched a surprise attack. And then this February, Oman was brokering these negotiations between the U.S. and Iran, And the Omani foreign minister said on the 27th of February that Iran was willing to make many concessions and they were making a lot of progress in these talks. And then one day later, on the 28th, the U.S. launched this surprise war against Iran. So from Iran's perspective, it cannot believe Washington when Washington says it wants talks, because every time they participate in talks, the U.S. uses that as an excuse to carry out a surprise attack. So it's entirely logical why Iran is skeptical about this. And I think, we've seen so many reports of the U.S. sending more troops to the region, and specifically you mentioned Karg Island, which is very important for Iran, because before the war, about 90% of Iran's exports passed through this island. So it's very possible that the U.S. is going to try to escalate this war and go further. But, Trump's whole strategy is he wants to make it impossible for the world to predict what he'll do next.
Yeah, Iran is like fool me once, right? I want to ask Bobby, the dairy journalist and political commentator from London, who has been observing and studying Middle East politics and military developments. Bobby, let me ask you about Iran's response. Reports from Israeli media suggest that the United States may be engaging with Iran's parliamentary speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, yet he himself has publicly denied any such contacts, calling the claims fake news aimed at influencing financial and oil markets. So how should we interpret these conflicting narratives?
I don't think you need to bother, at all to try to understand what is going on in Washington. The decision has been made. Invade, devastate Iran's infrastructure, and then take care of its oil business. That's precisely what they are going to do. That's exactly what they are trying to do, and they will do. They want to control the Strait of Hormuz, occupy Iranian oil-rich regions, especially islands, and get away with it. That's precisely what they have done in Syria, in Iraq, and many other places in the world, and we shouldn't be surprised if this is going to be the case with regard to Iran. This illegal war is not the first, and certainly it is not going to be the last. I think you should ask people in the streets of the capital, Tehran, and many other places across the country, what exactly is going on. It's all devastation, destruction, bloodshed, and I'm afraid that nobody is helping Iran. We know that Iran is alone in this. All the Arab countries that Iran used to think that they are Muslim, by the way. They are not Muslim. We are not Muslim. This is about politics. This is about interests. And exactly that's what they are also trying to do. They have housed U.S. bases for so many decades, and Iran is now fighting back. Iran is hitting everywhere. Why? Because Iran knows that from anywhere it could be hit. So if the Trump administration says something today and changes its mind tomorrow, it doesn't mean that they don't want to continue this unlawful war and occupy Iran's oil-rich areas in the coming weeks, if not months.
Bobby, let me ask you a follow-up question real quick, because you lived and worked in the Middle East for decades. Help us understand the Iranian mentality, in a piece of the puzzle that is often missing in international media: the institutional resilience, the process to select their supreme leader, the will of the military, the difficulty in subverting the grassroots, to the likes of Washington.
Well, you know better than me that Iran is an old civilization, so it doesn't depend on just one person or one group. If you kill one or two or three leaders, consecutively, somebody else is going to replace them. So that's precisely what Iran is doing now. Iran is not going to surrender. Yes, we know that people are not happy with the government, with the system. They don't like what is going on with regard to Iranian politics, especially elections and stuff like that. But make no mistake, this is about Iran. Yes, America says that we are only hitting energy or military infrastructure, but that is not the case. I have been watching this whole movie over the past few days and weeks, and many ordinary people are also paying the price. So when it comes to illegal wars and destruction, that's exactly what Iranians are going to become. They will become nationalists, and that's exactly what they are trying to become. Yes, Trump stopped hitting Iran's energy infrastructure. Why? Because they got the idea that if that is the case, then they cannot claim that they are just hitting the energy infrastructure. They are also hitting the civilian infrastructure that doesn't belong to the government or the Islamic Republic. It belongs to people. And if that happens, the whole story of regime change is going to collapse. They cannot continue the war, and Iranians are going to stand behind the government and defend the government in its campaign against foreign aggression and military campaign. That's why they stopped this crazy idea of hitting Iran's energy infrastructure. But as I told you, this is about Iranian military infrastructure and civilian places. So people are slowly getting the idea that in this war, everybody is going to pay through the nose. So you should expect more nationalism in the coming days and weeks.
Well, this always happens in history. You know, Trump became the unifier in chief for the countries that he confronts or antagonizes. Now, as always, President Trump's messaging appears to shift by the day and even by the hour. Within a matter of days, he moved from urging restraint on Iranian energy targets to threatening to obliterate them, and now claims very good and productive talks that Tehran, of course, flatly denies. Now, this ambiguity was only deepened and echoed by the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Here is what he said. I want you to listen to this.
Just to put a fine point on this, though, is the president in the process of winding down this war or escalating the conflict?
Again, they're not mutually exclusive. Sometimes you have to escalate to de-escalate, Chris.
Ben, you're laughing, and Einar, you are as well. Einar, let me go to you. Does this escalate to de-escalate logic, hold water? What's it all about?
Oh, come on. We need to surge peace, peace through power. These are the old chestnuts that have been used by the United States in countless military actions and wars across the world, starting with Korea, going on to Vietnam, and into almost everywhere. And it's this idea, American exceptionalism, that what we do is okay, and that what happens to others is just the consequences of us reordering the world. So do not pay any attention to this. But I would remind people, be careful about thinking that there are heroes in this war. There are none. These are all villains. And I have great sympathy for the Iranian people. But the fact is, they were responding to threats to the United States. They did things that involved innocent people through groups that they were very friendly with and supporting. So this isn't about who's right. The question right now is who is going to suffer. You have around the world right now, the planting season has begun. They don't have fertilizers. They do not have the petrol to run their machines, their tractors. This is going to hit the entire world. And while I understand that this is Iran's only option in their mind, the fact is it is going to hit everybody, not just their neighbors in the Middle East. In India right now, farmers cannot get diesel. They cannot plant their crops. They don't have what it's going to be necessary. People keep talking about the price of oil and gas, but they forget that once it is not there and the planting season goes, this becomes critical. And you're going to have civil unrest in many, many countries, especially those ones who do not have the reserves, the ability to take care of their country.
Now, Ben, how does this escalate to de-escalate logic expose the contradictions of U.S. foreign policy making? And more importantly, perhaps, how is this affecting or what's left of American credibility in the Middle East and around the world?
Well, there is very little credibility. And, even before Trump, when Joe Biden was president, we saw many polls that showed that, especially in the region, the U.S. was very unpopular because it was so strongly supporting Israel in what the United Nations referred to as a genocide in Gaza. And let's not forget that Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, still has an outstanding arrest warrant by the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity that he committed in Gaza. So that was under Biden. And now Trump has taken it to a whole new level, expanding the war in Gaza to not only Iran, but also Lebanon. Because as we speak, Israel has invaded Lebanon, and the finance minister of Israel, Smotrich, just called for annexing South Lebanon. So this war continues to expand. Now, to get to your question about escalate to de-escalate, this is totally Orwellian. It's like the slogan that the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, has promoted, which is peace through strength. Essentially, they're trying to argue that war is peace, that they have to wage war in order to bring about peace, which is completely ridiculous. And we've seen that in the region, it's not just Iran that's suffering. It's not just Lebanon that's suffering. This has become a regional war. Almost all of the countries in the region have been dragged into this war that is a war of choice that was totally unnecessary, that was started by two people, Trump and Netanyahu. And ironically now, many longtime U.S. allies in the Persian Gulf countries are actually very worried because these are countries that are hosting U.S. military bases. That's why Iran has retaliated against them. And they're the ones that are suffering, not the United States. I mean, people in the U.S. have to pay higher for gasoline, have to pay more at the pump. But the people in the region are now, many people are fleeing the UAE, they're fleeing Saudi Arabia, because as the U.S. is targeting Iranian infrastructure, especially desalination plants, which are very important, they're needed for water in the region because this is a region with many deserts. So if Iran retaliates after the U.S. and Israel hit Iran's desalination plants, and if Iran hits the desalination plants of other countries in the region, it could become inhospitable. It would be impossible for people to live there because there won't be water.
That would be a tragic situation. Which will also be tragic is, the oil, the safety of oil. The Pentagon is weighing plans to deploy thousands of troops, including airborne and maritime, to potentially seize the port of Kharg Island, Iran's main oil export hub, located some 600, 700 kilometers northwest of the Strait of Hormuz. Bobby, how should we read this? A contingency plan to build leverage or a signal of deeper U.S. involvement? And if that oil hub is attacked, would that mark a point of no return?
Iran is ready for any scenario, including a protracted war. Why? I have these figures just from a couple of years ago, not now. Iran has over 200,000 ballistic and hypersonic missiles, over 200,000. Iran also has access to even higher technology. I cannot, break that out right now, but I know full well as a journalist who has worked and studied this specific country, Iran has what it takes to continue this war for many years. We have to ask the same question from the United States and its regional allies. Do they also have the same kind of ammunition? I don't think they have it. So Iran is going to stand its ground, and Iran is going to continue this war, and Iran is not going to surrender. Why? Because it's not about just this war, it's about history. The government in the capital, Tehran, has been waiting for this day for more than 4 decades. They are not going to lose it. Yes, many leaders were killed, many commanders were killed, but this is not an easy task for the U.S. administration. And we know that they are not ready. Financially, diplomatically, they are isolated. Not even one ally is willing to come to the Middle East to help the Trump administration to take care of the Strait of Hormuz. Why? Because they know that it's a waste of time. They are telling, the argument is so simple. If you cannot, with all that armada, all those aircraft carriers, what we expected to do with couple of frigates? We cannot help you. You are in this situation alone, and you continue to do whatever you like to do. You know what's going to happen? The Trump administration is going to say, "Oh, we won the war. Let's go home," and that's exactly what they're going to do. But what about the destruction? What did you do to Iran, to so many countries in the region? Who is responsible? Where is international law? Where is the United Nations? What have we heard from the United Nations? Nothing. What have you heard? I mean, a statement to condemn who? Who cares if you issue a statement to condemn the United States? Who's going to pay the price? Who's going to help Iran to rebuild, especially being under sanctions? I mean, it's a crazy situation. This is an evil campaign with no end in sight, no conclusion, no accountability, no solution. There is no solution. You don't know. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow morning. Maybe they're going to start, using nuclear weapons. Look at the crazy government in Israel. They are devastated. Iranian missiles are hitting everything and everywhere. What's going to happen to Netanyahu? What if they start, using nuclear weapons? What's going to happen? Do you think that Iran is going to sit down and watch its infrastructure devastated, millions getting killed? No, that's not going to happen. I told you, Iran has access to many other advanced weapons. And if Israel starts to get desperate and use forbidden weapons, Iran is going to do the same thing. And the whole world is going to pay the price. Yeah. Nobody thought that this is a globalized 21st century. You cannot attack Iran, China, or even America and get away with it. It is going to affect everything across the globe. Politically, financially, economically, socially, you name it. Everything is going to be impacted negatively, and Iran is not an exception. This war is not an exception. We haven't seen anything yet. It is going to get out of control, and it is going to affect many people across the globe, as you said, and nobody is going to take responsibility or blame for it.
Yeah, with second strike capabilities now, also asymmetric warfare capabilities, the U.S. might be winning the battles, but it is Iran who might be winning the actual war. Let's talk about petrodollar, Einar, something you know a thing or two about. Because for decades, the U.S. hegemony was underpinned by the global agreement that oil be traded in U.S. dollars. Now, with the Strait of Hormuz effectively closed and the U.S. unable to guarantee safe passage, countries are accelerating their plans for crisis management neutrality and non-dollar energy settlements. So if Washington can no longer protect the global energy flow, has it lost the primary economic justification for the dollar status as the world's reserve currency?
Well, that's exactly what Iran is going to be pressing. It's about $1.3 billion a day in terms of settlements that would have been made at 20% of the oil that is there. It adds up to a large number, but it's nowhere near the $39 trillion of debt that the U.S. has and has to support. This is just another crack in what is becoming a real issue for people like Scott Bessent. How is he going to get people to buy this debt? Right now, the vast majority of it is held by Americans. But if there's a run on the dollar, those actual holdings will decrease in real value in terms of what they can buy abroad. Remember, the United States is not a country that can exist by itself. It takes in trillions of dollars of imports because it has to. And a lot of these items are non-negotiable. You need, have certain types of food. That's not the bigger issue, but you also have electronics, you have parts. And one thing for the U.S. government, they have been using their weapons with almost down to the point where they have to withdraw weapons from South Korea. There is a real nuclear threat there, and instead they're pulling them towards the Middle East. So what does that tell you? They're running low. How are they going to build new ones without rare earths? And those come from where? From China. Is China going to rearm the United States given the kind of devastation that it has? They've already made it clear that rare earths and strategic minerals are available for commercial products, not for engines of death. Right. So the U.S. is really facing some huge hurdles, and it's suddenly come home to Donald Trump that he's not on the winning side anymore.
He may not be winning even with his MAGA followers at home. I mean, the financial and social toll of the conflict is mounting. I want to show you real quick. According to CSIS, a conservative U.S. think tank in Washington, the war is costing nearly $890 million a day. And this expenditure is fueling a sharp public backlash. A recent CGTN poll shows that over 75% of the respondents believe this is accelerating U.S. economic decline, while over 90% see the conflict as a quagmire that ignores domestic crises like the debt ceiling and deepening internal partisan divisions. Ben, what does all these numbers tell you or tell us about Trump's declining support at home, even among his most ardent supporters?
We've seen poll after poll show that this war is extremely unpopular, and especially the proposal to send U.S. troops, boots on the ground, is extremely unpopular. Ironically, as you mentioned, this has fragmented the so-called MAGA base, these right-wing Republicans, because Trump promised when he campaigned for president that he was not going to wage these kinds of wars. He repeatedly said he was going to end wars, not start them. And we see, of course, that he lied about that. I should point out that Trump now has the record, a very dubious record, of bombing more countries than any other U.S. president. And there have been a lot of countries bombed by other presidents. Obama, for instance, bombed 7 countries, but Trump bombed 10 countries, and he continues to expand the list. He's now threatening Cuba. He said we're going to, quote, take Cuba, as if Cuba were a colony, not a sovereign country. And by the way, a report just came out in The Intercept that shows that the U.S. military is planning attacks in Latin America. And the name of this operation, I'm not joking, it's called Operation Total Extermination. That's the name of the U.S. military campaign in Latin America. So we've seen that Trump is doing the exact opposite of what he campaigned on. He claimed he would pursue peace. Meanwhile, he renamed the Department of Defense to the Department of War, and they are showing the world why it's called the Department of War.
Gentlemen, thank you for your insights, and that will do it for this edition of The Hub. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing.